How did you feel when the show ended? That was terrible. But despite all of our fights and arguing, we did love and hate each other. I want to hit each other. Cybill Shepherd used to be a big name in Hollywood, a face worth $1 million and hair as bright as the sun in the South. She changed the movie business with just her first part. She walked on the Golden Globe stage many times after that. People called her a star born to shine more than once. But that attention would later eat her up. Passionate but scandalous affairs, an embarrassing relationship with a married director, and run-ins with the TV industry's hidden power structure took Cybill Shepherd from the top of her fame to the edge of being turned down. After the cheers stopped, she had to deal with something that no script could have ever told her about. Deadly skin cancer, pain so bad it felt like it could not be survived, and being alone because of someone who used to be famous and couldn't be forgiven. Why did a star rise to fame and then fall? In her autobiography, Cybill Disobedience, Cybill talks about her honest, intense, and outspoken journey. Why did she decide to no longer hide anything? You're about to find out why she told everyone. On February 18, 1950, Cybill Lynn Shepherd was born. She grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, which is a quiet but traditional city. People in her family were in the middle class. Her dad, William Shepherd, ran a small business, and her mom, Patty, took care of the house. Her older sister was named Terry, and her younger brother was named William. She was the middle child of 3. Her name, Cybill, came from the names of her grandfather, C, and her father, Bill. It's a strange name, but easy to remember. It would become a name that Hollywood would never forget. Cybill stood out from a very young age. It was hard to miss her because of her blonde hair, fair skin, and expressive eyes. But her attitude, not her looks, was what people forgot most about her. She wasn't like most Southern girls her age when she went to East High School. She didn't just hang out and wait to be chased. She went after the people she liked. She even skipped school once to try out for a modeling job, which, if caught, would have meant she would have been suspended. She didn't care, though. Life was supposed to stand out for Cybill. She tried out for the Miss Teenage Memphis pageant in 1966 when she was 16 years old. She won, and then went to Miss Teenage America to represent the city. She didn't make it to the finals, but she did get the title of Miss Congeniality, which is a small but important honor. It proved that there was something really nice about her besides how she looked. In the long run, that trait would help her get far, but it also left her open to being used. Along with school, Cybill started modeling when she was young. She was named Model of the Year when she was 18. She went from being a high school student in Memphis to being the face of L'Oreal and the cover of Glamour. Her whole life changed because of that one picture. When Peter Bogdanovich was looking for a female lead for a movie, he saw Cybill's face on the cover of a magazine while he was in line at the grocery store. His agent called her right away and asked, "Who is this girl?" After a few weeks, Cybill was asked to try out for the Last Picture Show. She got the role, and was the first time she appeared on TV, but it was also the first time her private life came under scrutiny. Cybill left Memphis without anyone leading the way. She gained everything on her own by taking the initiative, being there without saying sorry, and refusing to live an average life. But it was that trait that made her one of the most feared and respected women in Hollywood. Cybill Shepherd's first movie was one that everyone will remember. She played JC in a movie by Peter Bogdanovich in 1971. Fox in The Last Picture Show, a classic black and white movie that was very daring for its time. The movie didn't shy away from touchy subjects like sexuality, being alone, and the quiet problems that young people in West Texas face. Cybill had a famous naked scene in which she played a pretty but cold and cunning young woman, taking off their clothes in front of clear glass in the living room, showing their body and their feelings. She was only 21 years old. Even though Cybill didn't have any acting training or experience, she was able to tap into something raw and important in movies: her presence. She was nominated for her first Golden Globe right away for New Star of the Year, which is pretty amazing for a model in her first movie part. But Cybill wasn't the only one who stood out. The film did too. The Last Picture Show earned 8 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, and won 2 awards. It is still often considered one of the best American movies of all time and one of the most important films of the 1970s. Cybill Shepherd felt that the part of J.C. Farrow wasn't just her first show. It was a huge step forward in her work as an actress. That part changed Hollywood's mind about her as an actress who used to be a model. People began calling her a sensation. Even more importantly, she made the whole industry take notice. Not every kind of beauty can be managed. After The Last Picture Show, her film career continued with leading parts in The Heartbreak Kid, 1972, and Taxi Driver, 1976. Not much screen time for her in Taxi Driver, but her character Betsy, who had a cold, vulnerable look in her eyes, became Travis Bickle and the audience's obsession with Robert De Niro. Cybill didn't just stop at movies, though. She had always had a quiet part of her for as long as she could remember. After making a name for herself in Hollywood, she followed her second dream, which was to become a singer. She put out her first studio record, Cybill Does It, to Cole Porter in 1974. A group of soft, romantic, and clearly female musicians playing well-known jazz standards. Cybill didn't want to be a pop star, so she picked traditional jazz, which was harder because technique couldn't hide a lack of feeling. She didn't turn into a singing star. When she sang, people who cared would listen. After that, she kept putting out albums. Mad About the Boy in 1990, Cybill Gets Better in 1992, and At Last, Love, Cybill Shepherd Sings, Cole Porter in 2006. Cybill played music outside of the studio, in bars, jazz clubs, and small cultural events. Not to sell tickets, but because she was a real artist who lived through music. She didn't have an incredibly powerful voice, but her voice had an unfiltered charm and emotional honesty that isn't often found in big stars. She brought music with her to TV, too. She cleverly worked her love of singing into her role on the show Cybill, which ran from 1995 to 1998. People were always surprised when Cybill Sheridan would switch from snark to song, singing soulfully in the middle of everyday scenes, as if to say that music was still her safe place amidst all the noise. But just as her acting and singing careers were taking off, Cybill decided to put them all on hold to have a baby. She had her first daughter, Clementine Ford, in the late 1977. Cybill once said in an interview, "I could have more roles, but I would never have that moment with my daughter again." After taking some time to raise her family, she went back to TV and made guest roles on shows like Fantasy Island, 1977. Cybill had changed by that time. She wasn't the exciting newbie anymore. Now she was the woman that everyone looked forward to seeing every week. She was a figure that was both familiar and hard to find. Cybill Shepherd played a part in 1985 that was very different from anything she had done before. It was a huge turning point in her career. Maddie Hayes, a broke former model who has to run a strange detective service with David Addison, a partner who is hard to predict. Bruce Willis played the part. Moonlighting was the show. It was an ABC romantic comedy detective show. Moonlighting was a big hit thanks to its sharp scripts, fast-paced dialogue akin to stage plays, and a rhythm that mixed comedic and love tension. But what kept people hooked to the screen was the electric chemistry between Cybill Shepherd and Bruce Willis. It was as tight as a violin string and was funny, seductive, and fragile all at the same time. They didn't just click on the screen. Their lively energy and natural back and forth made the whole show better, which is something that acting classes could never teach. Cybill won 2 Golden Globes in 1986 and 1987 for her part as Maddie Hayes in a TV show that was either musical or comedic. The press called her the golden face of primetime TV at the time. TV Guide named Maddie and David one of the best TV pairs of the 2000s. Moonlighting also raised the standing of American TV, turning a genre show into something that students of screenwriting study. Some shows didn't follow any rules at all. One was styled like a film noir, another like a musical, and in some, characters broke the fourth wall to talk to viewers directly. Cybill was at the heart of this idea. She was both a beauty icon and a smart, strong woman who didn't depend on men. In a lot of conversations, the show's producers said that Cybill was the key to giving it its own voice. She not only played the lead role, but she also helped create the show's fast, funny, and complex dialogue, which would go on to inspire many others. Behind the scenes, things were getting more tense as Moonlighting did well in theaters. The fights between Cybill Shepherd and Bruce Willis, the two actors who made the show famous, became clearer. Things that started out as small differences turned into direct fights. These two people had strong wills and wouldn't give up. Curtis Armstrong, who co-starred with Bruce in the show, wrote in his autobiography that Bruce was praised for being laid back and a guy's guy, even though both of them were worn out by the high-stakes setting of the show. One woman said in an interview years later, when a woman speaks up, she's called a diva. When a guy yells, he's called decisive. During this time, Cybill also found out she was pregnant with twins, which slowed down production. Instead of understanding, the media blamed her for the show's loss of steam. At the same time, Bruce Willis became famous with the Die Hard series, which changed his schedule and goals. They didn't film together as much, so the love tension on screen started to fade because they could hardly look at each other off screen. In the last few seasons, things reached a breaking point where both the writing and working conditions became unbearable. Moonlighting was finally canceled in 1989 after being praised as a creative TV hit. It seemed like Cybill had made the jump from movies to TV, hit new heights, and won back-to-back Golden Globes. But behind the scenes, she was dealing with stress, bias against women, and fights with a co-star that were bound to happen. Someone who was once the perfect on-screen partner is now just another person in the frame. She said, "I don't regret the stress of Moonlighting. It made the screen seem more real than it was. It cost a lot, though, and Cybill Shepherd knew one thing for sure after working extra hours. Happiness always has a dark side. The shadow behind the spotlight gets darker as it gets brighter." Cybill Shepherd came back to TV in 1995 with a show that was named after her, and this time she was in charge of all the ideas. Cybill was a sitcom about a middle-aged actress in Hollywood named Cybill Sheridan. She used to be pretty famous, but now she has to deal with casting calls for mother-in-law roles, raising her kids, and a business that is becoming more and more focused on young people. Cybill herself said that the character was really me, saying all the things I used to hide. It was an answer from a woman who was once praised for her beauty, but was suddenly forgotten when her looks got old. On top of being the show's star, Shepherd co-produced it, helped write the scripts, and set the show's tone and message. She won, of course. Cybill instantly became a phenomenon, because it voiced things women over 40 had never been allowed to say on American TV, about ex-husbands, midlife sexuality, Hollywood's double standards, being replaced by younger actresses, single motherhood, and unspoken loneliness. It was a kind of deep satire, reminiscent of Lucille Ball with a feminist twist, and critics called her exactly that. She was like Lucille Ball in the 1990s. Cindy Baranski won a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actress, and Cybill got her third Golden Globe for the show. Cybill was nominated for 12 Emmys and was one of CBS's top 20 most-watched shows for all 3 of its seasons. Beyond commercial success, Cybill had a cultural effect. It paved the way for later series like The Good Wife, Grace and Frankie, and Big Little Lies, where older women were no longer sidelined, but put at the story's center. In an interview, Christine Baranski admitted, "Cybill was the first show where the female character wasn't defined by the men she loved." But behind the laughter lay a disturbing truth. In an interview with SiriusXM in 2018, Cybill said that the show was abruptly canceled after she turned down Lee Moonves's sexual advances. Moonves was the powerful CEO of CBS at the time. Moonves drank at a private dinner and gave her the idea of taking him home. She kindly but firmly said no. Not long after, he began interfering in the show's content, made unreasonable demands, and suddenly ordered its cancellation, despite the existing contract. Years later, Moonves was accused of sexual misconduct by multiple women and was forced to resign. Cybill's story, initially ignored, was finally seen as a telling example of the power structures that had oppressed women in Hollywood for decades. Cybill Shepherd never received an apology, but she never waited for one either. She once said in public, "If I had said yes that night, maybe Cybill would have been on for a few more seasons. I wasn't here to give up my honor for a few more comedy episodes, though." Though the milestones of 1985 and 1995 marked her television peaks, Cybill Shepherd's work wasn't confined to those golden years. Before she became the queen of primetime in the ADCS, she had already built out a striking film career. Taxi Driver, 1976, and The Heartbreak Kid, 1972. She showed she wasn't just pretty. She was an actress who could suppress feelings and wield coldness with precision on screen. After her big break in The Last Picture Show, that time was her way of saying she was worth something, letting Cybill know she hadn't just been lucky. For a while, she didn't work on TV after giving birth, but in the early 1980s, she did guest roles, including one on Fantasy Island in 1983. It wasn't a triumphant return. Instead, it was a quiet step toward the big break in Moonlighting 2 years later. At about the same time, Cybill started a different trip, a journey through music. When her first jazz record came out in 1974, it didn't do very well in the stores, but it showed a different side of her. She was gentle, persistent, and not bothered by trends. Even after Cybill was canceled, Cybill Shepherd didn't stop. She kept acting, though not always in major parts. In The L Word, where she played a mother who supported her lesbian daughter, she really made an impression. During the 2000s, she was a regular guest star on Psych, Criminal Minds, and No Ordinary Family. Simultaneously, she released more jazz albums like Cybill Gets Better, 1992, and At Long Last Love, 2006. Always refined, never giving in to mass-market ideas. Looking back at her full journey, it's clear Cybill wasn't defined by a moment in time. She was the kind of artist whose every chapter, loud or quiet, grand or humble, was a true fragment of perseverance. In her own way, she shone, burned, and then glowed again. In the past, before The Last Picture Show, Cybill Shepherd was a young model trying to make it in the entertainment business. In her autobiography, Cybill Disobedience, she wrote about her time living in New York and studying art and culture. It was there that she started to think that shame about being naked was a cultural construct. This view had a big impact on one of the most important choices she ever made.